Joe here. Thanks for visiting Road Trip Joe, and thanks for being my patron. Speaking of patrons, I've got a few patrons now, and I think you're starting to get the idea that, you know, I make videos for me, but I also make them for you. So if you have some ideas or suggestions or some topic you think you might want to have information on, let me know, and I'll make a video for you. All right, one of my patrons actually wrote a letter to me. Dear Joe, your videos are awesome, and so are you. Oh, thanks, Mark. Okay, Mark also went on to write, could you please make a video about how many solar panels it would take to replace one nuclear power plant? And that's a good question, Mark, and I know you're interested in it because you live on the coast, just right around the bend from the last nuclear power plant still in California. I did some research, and here's what I found. Mark really didn't write a letter, but he did send me an email, and I made some of the other stuff up. Okay, here you go, Mark. How many solar panels does it take to replace a nuclear power plant? Good question. My initial thought was, well, it would take thousands, maybe tens of thousands, or hundreds of thousands. And what do you do at night? No sun at night, you know. So we have to stick with the daytime numbers for now. When I first started to research it, the numbers dealt with acres, as in how many acres would it take to mount all these panels. The numbers were all over the board. The best I could find was that it would take anywhere from 5 to 20,000 acres of panels. That's a lot of panels. And what about the panels? Are they 100-watt panels? They come in different varieties, you know. They range from 100-watt panels all the way up to 330 watts and maybe even bigger. This is my panel, and this is what I use for my travel trailer. It's 100 watts, and it's really just used for a trickle charge on my battery. So we're going to base our answers using 250 watt panels. First, how much power does a nuclear power plant really produce? How many homes does it light up? We will use the Diablo plant since it sits pretty close to Mark's house. Diablo means devil, by the way, in Spanish. Diablo has 2 nuclear reactors and sits on about 900 acres, although the actual plant only takes up about 12 acres. Together, the reactors produce 18,000 gigawatt hours per year, or 1,000 megawatts per hour, which is about 8.6% of what the whole state of California uses. Man, that's a lot. I had no idea. And when the San Onofre plant in San Diego closed a few years ago, they moved over to fossil fuels in that area, but some predict that renewable energy will become the dominant source in the coming days. But right now, they're burning fossil fuels in the San Diego area since the plant closed down. I'm kind of on the fence about that one. I don't think California ever really embraced nuclear power. But the good news is that in 2016, California reported that solar power across the state produced 19,783 gigawatts an hour of power, which provided almost 10% of California's needs. Not bad. That's more than the Diablo plant. So right now, there are enough solar panels in use in California that already equal that one plant. They're scattered all over the state, though. And I bet much of that comes from people putting panels on their roofs. So let's do some quick math. One 250-watt panel with 4 hours of sun produces 1 kilowatt of power, or 1,000 watts of power a day. Times 18,000, which is the number of gigawatts produced by the plant? That's right. A gigawatt is equal to 1 billion, or 10 to the 9th power, watts, or 1 gigawatt equals 1,000 megawatts. And 1,000 megawatts is equal to 1 million kilowatts. So just to get a megawatt of power from these panels that produce just 1,000 watts of power a day, you'll need, well, lots of panels. Okay, my head is starting to hurt a little, Mark. You need a whole bunch of panels, my friend. The rule of thumb on these things is that a photovoltaic solar plant, that's what they call them, so I hope I'm pronouncing that right. This photovoltaic plant produces 1,000 megawatts per hour and requires on average 2.8 acres for solar panels. You with me? That means that a solar power plant that provides all the electricity for 1,000 homes would require 32 acres of land. Okay, that kind of math sounds a little easier to do. That figure comes from a study called Land Use Requirements for Solar Power Plants in the United States, which of course is some laboratory in the Department of Energy who funded this study. You know, the Energy Department, the one Rick Perry wanted to shut down but couldn't remember its name? Well, he runs it now, you know. So back to Mark's question. We are replacing a nuclear power plant that provides electricity for 3 million homes with solar panels. That will take a little more than 32 acres, or 900 acres for that matter. An average home requires 4,000 watts per day, so the numbers are starting to add up. Some estimates call for over 20 250 watt panels depending on how much energy is used for the year. And these panels are 65 inches long and 39 inches wide. So 1,000 homes needs 32 acres of land and around 20,000 panels. So if we just extrapolate that figure, let's see, 20 panels from one home times 3 million homes, that's what? 60 million panels? Is that right? And the land needed, well, that's a whole nother ballgame. According to the Deregulate the Atom folks, nuclear advocates it seems, you would need 5,000 acres of solar panels to equal 1,000 megawatts of electricity. But that's only a partial need since you only get benefits when it's sunny. But going by their calculations, you need 20,000 acres to do the job. Your head spinning yet? That's around 31 square miles of panels, by the way. And land in California isn't cheap, Mark, so get ready to open that wallet. So I bet right now, listening to all these numbers, you're probably wondering where is the largest solar farm in the world and how would it stack up to what we're trying to figure out here? Well, that would be India. The Bhadla Solar Park is the largest solar farm in the world, and it is huge. It generates 746 million watts of electricity. Not enough to replace a nuclear power plant, but still very impressive. India also has the second largest farm, the Kamuthi solar plant, which comes in at 648 million watts. The United States has the next two largest plants, with both of them in California. The Solar Star near Rosamond produces 570 million watts, and the Topaz Solar Farm in California produces 550 million watts. Until India went big, the Solar Star used to be the largest plant with 1.7 million panels spread over 3,200 acres. Impressive, yes, but still way short of the 18,000 gigawatt nuclear power plants. We're talking giga, not mega, you know. The Topaz plant creates about 1.2 gigawatts on average per year, and the Topaz plant takes up 4,100 acres, and it's not too far from where Mark lives. So if we're trying to get to 18 gigawatts, then we need some land that has lots and lots of sun. For my calculations, we need about 70,000 acres. So what about when it's dark or it's a cloudy day? I know what you're thinking, windmills, right? Let's just skip the math on this one and you guys just trust me on these figures. It would take 2,800 windmills to make up the difference at night or when the sun isn't shining. And that's around 60,000 acres needed for the big turbines, some that have Airbus length wingspans. And they would only be effective when the wind's blowing. But the one thing that all the electrical generators there are in this country have in common is that you can't store energy to use it later. That's right. Coal plants, nuclear, oil, solar, you name it. You can't store electricity for rainy days, folks. Sorry. Batteries right now are the only way to store electricity, and even though the technology is improved, we aren't quite there yet. When we do get there, then solar and wind should be the only way to go until something new comes along. But for now, we have to come back to when the sun shines and when the wind blows. So what's the alternative? Well, seems there is one solution on the horizon. Something that's kind of new and kind of old. It's called waves. Yes, ocean waves. They never stop. Day or night, waves come in and waves go out. It's perpetual. And there's a technology to harness those waves and turn it into electricity. They call this the Wave Energy Converter, or WEC. Now, people have been trying to do this since the 1800s, realizing its potential. But the first one that really worked and went into production was installed in Portugal in 2008. So how does this wave technology work? Waves are generated by wind passing over the surface of the water. As long as the waves are slower than the wind speed above them, there is an energy transfer between the wind to the waves. Obviously, on less windy days, you have lower energy transfers, but I don't recall when the waves just stopped, day or night. They're always going. The first wave generating system in this country went online in 2016 in Hawaii. Hawaii has some of the highest energy costs because oil has to be brought in to operate its plants. They plan on being totally oil independent by 2045, which is a long way off, I know, but you gotta have a goal, right? The estimates for this technology are good though. Some predict that wave power could generate 25% of this country's needs. And that's day or night power, like regular coal or a nuclear plant. Wave power is about where solar was around 30 years ago. Now in Hawaii, with the highest energy costs in the country, there probably isn't much complaining about using the ocean for this. They are totally surrounded by water. California, well, I'm not so sure. There will be detractors. Probably the same ones who didn't want to desalinate the water, I'm guessing. Other countries testing wave technology include Australia, the UK, and Brazil. In fact, Britain has 35 of the world's 150 wave generator plants right now, so they're all over it. Germany jumped on board last year, and they have been developing even newer technology where the entire plant rests on top of the water, not underneath it. I did find one interesting quote when researching all of this, though. It's from Thomas Edison. Remember him? Well, Mr. Edison said, "I would put all of my money on the sun and solar energy." Mr. Edison went on to say he hoped that they would tackle that technology before oil and coal ran out. This was back in 1931. Too bad Mr. Edison didn't work on it himself. He would have made even more money and saved us from lots of smog. So Mark, to your original question, how many solar panels would it take to replace a nuclear power plant? Well, to be honest, I have no idea. A lot. I'll work on it some more and get back to you, okay? If one of you know the answer, though, then post it on Road Trip Joe so we can satisfy Mark's curiosity, although I have a feeling Mark already knows. He is an electrician. Or didn't I tell you that? Thanks for your suggestion, Mark. Good job, good job. So what else would Road Trip Joe patrons like to know? Just send me a letter like Mark, or an email. Thanks for being my patron. That's all I got. Quick story about the Diablo power plant. I used to play in the men's league over at the Avila Beach and Golf Resort, which is like right around the bend from this Diablo power plant. And sitting there after a round one day, and I got one of my friends sitting next to me, we'll call him Pete, who was a retired California Highway Patrolman. And then across the table is my friend Ken, who used to work for the Sierra Club. And I don't know how the conversation got to this, but Pete started talking about the time that they all got called out, all the cops, to remove all of these protesters who were protesting this new nuclear power plant that was going on. I think it was late 70s or early 80s or something like that. And he went on and on about how they had to drag them out of there. And he was talking about this little device that they had that they would clip on their ears. And it hurt so much that these people became very compliant. And he would just pick them up and just kind of drag them over the paddy wagon and throw them in. And Pete was just laughing and laughing. Well, the whole time I knew Ken used to work for the Sierra Club. So I'm watching his face, hoping that Ken doesn't reach across the table or something. And he just kind of looks up from his sandwich and he goes, "Yeah, I was one of those protesters." Just like that, just deadpan. And then he went back to his lunch. And Pete just kept on laughing and laughing. I thought it was kind of strange. Here it was 30 years after the fact, or maybe even more. And these guys are sitting down having lunch together. And when they were protesting the plant, they were at odds with each other. And I have a feeling that nobody really put a clip on Ken's ear. He's like 6'5". But you never know. Could have been Pete. So Pete enjoyed it, and I just think that's kind of a interesting story. That's all I got.